So I'm very grateful that you're our guest speaker tonight, Gavin.
Pleasure.
Thank you for coming. Although the first time I met you, it was quite unusual circumstances. You had a traffic pole on your shoulder.
An entire pedestrian crossing with a box and everything. It wasn't like a small one, just a box. I had to have the entire pole.
Yeah, I know. Of course, I had to take a picture when I saw this guy walking around with a crossing pole on his shoulder. It's not something you see every day in Edinburgh. And you're on your way to the Dynamic Earth for an event.
Doing a presentation.
Yeah. So that was a while ago now, I think.
Yeah, it's taken a long time to get where I am, and I'm still nowhere. There'll be people in this room who are closer to hitting that unicorn status than me, or are further along the road. But bear in mind that I had absolutely no experience of business. I have no degree. I didn't go to university. I just spent 18 years learning about a problem.
Yeah. So you started. You were a side hustler, weren't you? Because you were working. Training guide dogs and their owners.
Yeah, training the people how to use the dog.
Yeah. And then you start. So obviously you saw. That's when you discovered the problem.
Yeah.
Would you say is that when that happened?
Yeah. So you're walking along and watching somebody having a problem, and you're thinking, the majority of people who are disabled or elderly or have ill health, they go to the doctor. And then the doctor provides a service, or a nurse, or whatever, hospital, or the person comes to their home and supplies a solution. There's not very many people that will follow that person between both venues. So not very many people see how somebody lives in the world. Now, the majority of people who are working in accessibility, and we're all working in accessibility, anybody who's not thinking about providing services for disabled people, you need to be thinking about this. But anybody who's living in that area who has no personal knowledge, they say, I'll ask somebody who's disabled. And then the person who's disabled tells them about their life, and then they go, okay, brilliant, we'll incorporate that into our designs. But that's not the same as actually truly having an understanding of somebody's life. And the next best thing to living it, i.e. living with a condition, is living alongside somebody or seeing somebody on a daily basis who's living with that.
So you obviously saw that there was a problem, and at some point you made a decision to do something about it. So the origin story of your company. Can you remember what that moment was like, or what thoughts were going through your mind?
My thoughts were, I knew that the tactile cone. Does everybody know about the tactile cone underneath the box? No. Okay, put your hand underneath any crossing box you come to. You're either going to feel a cone that sits down, or there'll be a hole. When the green man comes on, the cone revolves. So if there's no audible signal, the cone revolves, and the blind person or deaf person knows that the green man is on. Okay, so that's what we've got. Other countries got different things. Holland, they've got a vibrating pad. I think the same in South Africa. America, it's every man for himself, I think. They don't really have much in America yet. Any Americans in? Sorry, guys. Well, you can maybe tell me later. There's not much in the way of pedestrian-controlled crossings. The traffic is king, I guess, and you take your risks. In fact, the very first guide dog owner who went to America was a guy called Maurice Frank, who went to Morristown, and he went to New York with his guide dog, and all the cameras came to watch him because he was the first guide dog owner, and he had to cross a 6-lane highway, and miraculously he managed to get across the road without dying. But it wasn't because the dog was trained to get across. He just went, "Go for it, buddy!" and he just sort of darted in between all the cars that were nearly killing him. But it's an amazing story. Look into it. I've lost the thread of the conversation.
So the moment in your mind when you decided to do something about it rather than not.
It was actually a friend who said, you've got an idea, you know that this exists as a problem, you know you've got a solution, you should do something about it.
How did he know that? How did he know about you?
Because I was a keyboard warrior going, this is a terrible thing, we need to do something about it, until eventually you realise that there is nobody doing anything about it. That was it.
Keyboard warrior.
Yeah. The other thing that's worth noting is that back in 2003 I got really into technology, and it was specifically the iPhone that I got excited by in 2006. I'd done lots of GPS stuff up till then, but I had people turning up to train with guide dogs and they were using mobile phone technology. Has anybody heard of VoiceOver? Hands, please. Anybody heard of VoiceOver or TalkBack? Right, okay. So you've got Siri, which is Hey Siri stuff. Don't do anything. Oh, you're doing it now. But TalkBack and VoiceOver, TalkBack on Samsung or Android, and VoiceOver on Apple. If you go into all of your phones, go into settings, and then go to General, and then go to Accessibility. Your phone is absolutely jam-packed with ways to make it more accessible. And I guarantee you, if you aren't looking at that as part of whatever you do, then you aren't understanding the 20% of the population in the UK and worldwide, or 18%, who are going to be using this to communicate with you to buy stuff that you are doing or services that you are doing. So if you don't know about this, you need to know about it, if that's the one thing you take away from this. But I'm going to show you very quickly VoiceOver, which is one at the top here. We'll turn it on. I've got it set up on a triple tap for my phone. So if I just turn the volume, turn that on, turn the volume up.
VoiceOver on. Storage folder. Portrait. Docs folder. Inclusion folder. Utilities folder. Neatbox apps. Language. Headings. Language.
English.
Default language. English UK.
Okay.
English default.
English Australia.
See if I can do other things here. I've just turned my music on. I've just turned my music off.
Screen curtain on.
I've just turned the screen curtain on. My battery has just improved by 25%.
Speech off.
Speech off. Be careful with this.
Speech
Right, if you're in a pub with somebody else and they've got their phone, turn on VoiceOver, turn off the speech, turn on the screen. They'll come back. They won't have a clue what their phone's doing.
Screen curtain off.
Okay. So you can then open up things. Oh, actually, here's a good one to show you.
Headings. Containers. Volume. Speaking rate. 40%. 80%.
Right, the majority of people who are blind
90%.
use their phone at this speed.
Folder. Apps. Console. Tickets. Apps. Social folder. Apps.
They are therefore so much quicker than you. They also do it like this with headphones on. Yeah, okay, yeah, I know where I'm going. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm free on Thursday next week. Yeah, 7 o'clock? Yeah, I'm in. It's in the diary. And they will do it that quick. Disabled? Possibly the wrong word to use.
Yeah.
So I got interested in that.
Wow. Gosh. And, okay. Wow, we've never experienced anything like that on one of these. So I think we should give you an applause.
Come on. That's not me.
Wow, it's almost like something you see on Britain's Got Talent, or...
And it's on every single person's phone in this room. And if you're designing solutions and you're not using it, then woe betide you in the world we live in.
So obviously you're trying to make the most of this technology, but we're going to go there in a minute. So you had this, you got this challenge by your friends. How did you feel about that?
Well, I just thought, yeah, I could investigate it. I had some money in the bank. Although I was a charity worker, I had a house. I had 2 houses at the time, but really cheap ones at a time when there wasn't many houses. And I just thought, well, I'll sell one of those houses and live in the other one. I didn't get much from it, but gave me enough, 20 grand or whatever I had, in order to look at how I would investigate it. And then I got help from Business Gateway, who just give you really good advice. And the advice I got was, you know nothing about business, what the hell are you doing? And then I had people helping me and supporting me, people who would say, yeah, you're going to have some sort of understanding of accounts and development and business plans and business models. And I was like, straight over my head, I had no idea. I just said, I just want to fix something. And then I just relied on other people helping me, people without much knowledge. But as you go on, you surround yourself with people with more knowledge until eventually you're paying them top dollar to actually give you that support.
Yeah, and so you made this decision to do something about it, and so you went to Business Gateway, you got some advice, and so what was your first step, or what was your plan?
What was my plan? I wish I'd had your rule book, because I would have followed that, but I didn't. I didn't have any rule book or plan. Business Gateway kind of just allowed me through osmosis to soak up what I should be doing. It wasn't a written plan. I did have to put a business plan together. That was ripped up within the space of a couple of weeks. Then another one was ripped up. Then another one was ripped up. And it just evolved into something else. I then realised that the social enterprise I wanted at the very start wasn't going to be the way that I was going to manage this, because I came from a charity background where I thought that I could get money from other people, and because it's good, and I'll be able to do it all for free. It'll be great. But there was no sustainability in that, and also people weren't at that time prepared to invest in a company that wasn't going to make them money. So that meant having to go to get grant funding, and then it meant having to start a charity, and then you become a very different beast. And I wanted, and I think it's turned into, and I hope I can talk about it later, I've turned into this amazing middle ground company that is not PLC and it's not social enterprise. It's somewhere in the middle, profit for purpose, or social good, which is just the best.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So obviously there's B Corps in America, but that's in America, and we are creating new entrepreneurial spaces, and so you've been on quite a long journey. You've been at this a number of years now. So when was the time when you started to make progress, or you had started to make a difference, have an impact?
There's a good lesson to be learned here. Up until 2014, I was working for Guide Dogs for the Blind. Well, 2015, I took a sabbatical because I realised I couldn't invent pedestrian crossings and have a company unless I actually put some time into it, because I was working full-time as a mobility instructor. So I left. I took a sabbatical for a year, and it gave me a chance to really focus. And then during that year, I decided that what I wanted to do was try and raise some cash. And I got loads of horror stories about going to angels, about how you were going to get completely done in. So I actually just asked friends and family, and I managed to raise £78,000 from friends and family, which was then matched funded by Scottish Investment Bank because they really liked the idea. So I had £150,000 or whatever it was, and that meant I could do the most important thing for me and possibly any business, which is find somebody else who truly believes in what you're doing, who sees it as an amazing opportunity to do something they want to do. So I met a chap called Alan Hutchin. Alan Hutchin is the husband of Leah Hutchin. Leah Hutchin owns a company called Appointed, which is an online... you've heard about it. Could you explain? So you use it. There we go. Brilliant.
Well, Appointed is an online booking tool. I think it's here, Edinburgh based.
It is, yeah, Edinburgh based. Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, it's a great platform, really easy to use. It's business to business oriented. We use it as an integration. You can integrate it almost within anything with an API.
Yeah.
And it's been working really well for us.
Well, Alan's wife started that company, which meant that Alan, alongside her journey, knew about how you handled a startup company. And I was looking for a project manager. God knows I was looking for so much more. But Alan fitted into that COO or ops director position. And where I am, and this is, I love telling the people this, but because it wasn't me that came up with it, it was somebody else. They said, you know what? You're a bit like Buzz Lightyear. And I was like, yeah, I'm the sort of guy that's just going to run in without knowing whether he's got a plan to survive. And Alan is very much like Woody. You know that scene in Toy Story where he says who's got their moving partner and their moving buddy, and everything's written down, and Woody has to make sure he knows how to do everything before he starts? Well, we were very much like that, a Buzz and Woody sort of type character, and I could not survive without Woody Alan, because he makes sure that I am in the right place at the right time, and that we're developed and all the other things that are happening in the company. And then I can run into buildings and save hamsters or whatever I'm going to do.
So were you always like this, Gavin, when you were in the RAF? Did you have this kind of passion and this? Did you?
Yeah.
So you were kind of born like Buzz Lightyear.
No. I don't think I recognised it at the time, but I always had a mind that wanted to solve moral problems, I think. But if I saw a problem, I'd be like, I've got to do something about that. But I never did. I was always the person that says that they've got a screenplay in them, or I'm going to write a book, or I've got an idea for this amazing thing. And the fact that you guys are here means that you are the person who's prepared to actually step outside of that and say, I'm going to do this. And otherwise you wouldn't be here. The people who aren't doing that, they fill the rest of Edinburgh. The people who are prepared to step outside the comfort zone are here right now. And I was that person eventually, but I did need to get a kick from somebody else. And everybody in here has got a story about why they started. And it's probably because somebody kicked them in some way.
Yeah. So what would you be doing if you hadn't had your friend or Alan or...
I'd still be a guide dog mobility instructor in the best job in the world, training people how to use guide dogs. But I'd still be going, these pedestrian crossings are in the wrong place.
Well, that's great. I mean, obviously, it's hard to be successful as an entrepreneur on your own. We do need friends to challenge us, to help us. And this is an opportunity to find co-founders if If you look for a co-founder and start talking to people about what you're doing. So it's great to hear your example, and in some ways you're a role model for many of us. Obviously we shouldn't necessarily sell our houses to fund our startups.
I sold both my houses eventually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, you have to. And I actually, my mum lives in a house that I own, and I live in rented accommodation. But you just give up everything.
All right.
And I think that's my best tip: is if you love what you're going to do so much that you will die for it, nearly, then you are probably going to be successful. And I had 3 years ago last week, I had a brain hemorrhage. And I was lying in a hospital, and I was being trolleyed through to. I only tell you this story for this particular reason. I was being trolleyed through to get a scan to see if they needed to cut into my head to save my life. And all I was thinking about on the trolley was, I haven't sold any pedestrian crossings yet. And that's all I was thinking about, and I guarantee you that's all I thought about. So if you're prepared to do that, then I think that's
just a passion and a commitment that's very extraordinary. Are you an extraordinary entrepreneur, or are there more entrepreneurs like you around, do you think?
I think it is purely down to confidence that you are doing the right thing. And I think I think I said to Caro the other day, I was in the car, I said, I have absolutely dead fire cert that the idea is right. And if you break that down to disabled people have the same right to cross the road as everybody else, how could that be wrong? There's nothing about that sentence that's wrong. Are they getting safe pedestrian crossings right now? No, they're not. So it's not about self-confidence, because you're bigger. Or what you're trying to do is bigger than your lack of confidence. And any lack of confidence I had before was totally dispelled by the fact that I needed to fix this scenario.
So some people might think, well, somebody else will fix that problem. How come you didn't think that?
Because nobody else was. So nobody in the world is doing this. So
right.
And I found out very quickly that all the people in the traffic industry didn't even know there was a problem. And I did presentations with the traffic industry, and I was seen as being this really dangerous person who is coming along and telling them that the world is round and not flat, which makes it really difficult to sell something. You can imagine the guy from Uber, maybe a bad example, but Airbnb, saying, I've got this great idea, and telling somebody from Hilton Hotels, oh, it's brilliant, people are going to stay in houses, not hotels. The guy from Hilton would be like, I'm not happy with what you're doing. The traffic industry was like that with me.
And it's easy for us to make the mistake and talk to the wrong people who just don't get what we're trying to do. Their worldview is just, this is a square hole, and it's never you're wasting your time talking to these people. So what do you do instead?
Just keep on keeping on. When I went to the traffic industry and said, I'm going to use my mobile phone to press the button at the pedestrian crossing, they went, you can't have people using their phone to press the button at a pedestrian crossing. That will create havoc. And then 5 years later, we have people suggesting that we're going to drive around our streets in cars without drivers in them. So my idea was overtaken by their idea that actually it was possible. And now they're asking me if I can do the things that I said I could do to start with. So things catch up. If your idea is a little bit ahead of the curve, and mine was, just because of position, it's not because I had any great intellect, I just saw all the stars were in alignment for me, as they will be for other people. It's then trying to convince other people that your idea has real merit, and eventually people have caught up with that.
Wow, that must be a relief.
But I also developed other things as well, so as a sort of stopgap.
Okay, what kind of things were they?
This one's quite exciting. So I know I can press the button at a pedestrian crossing with a mobile phone. Phone starts the app, phone goes in your pocket, walk towards the crossing, wait for a couple of seconds, wait light comes on, beep, 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 cross the road. It was good timing. I realised I could press the button at a pedestrian crossing. I then went, I could press the button at a door. So instead of having to hit the button at the door, at a hospital door, the door would just open. If I've pressed the button at the door, then the door knows who's pressed the button, because my phone has an IP address. If the door knows who I am, then the building knows who I am. If the building knows who I am, the people inside the building know who I am. If the people inside the building know who I am, I can train them as to how they should interact with me before I come through the door. And if I then geofence the building, As I hit the geofence, I can send a message to the people to say that I'm nearby, so that when I walk through the door, 10 minutes before I walk through the door, they've been trained on how to interact with me, bearing in mind that I might have cerebral palsy, dyslexia, ataxia, M&D, MD, MS, hearing impairment, visual impairment, any number of different disabilities. And right now, all we do is staff training, and more staff training, and more staff training, across sectors where all that ever happens is the staff leave and more staff turn up. So you can imagine in the tourist industry, every summer, trying to teach everybody about every disability, with 75% of people who are disabled having hidden disabilities. So you wouldn't even know unless they self-declared. So I've got autism, I don't have autism, but if I had autism and I went into Starbucks, or schizophrenia or something like that, if I went into Starbucks, I'm the person who has to say, you want my name? Yeah, it's Gavin, and if you just write schizophrenia underneath there, that'd be really useful. And then the 19-year-old barista goes, what am I supposed to do? And like a rabbit in headlights, then disengages from me. So if I could train them before I walk through the door, then not only have I cured that person's problem, but I've totally changed how staff training is delivered for 20% of the population. 20% of the population in this country equates to a spending power of £249 billion a year.
Wow.
75% of disabled people have had and stated they've had poor customer service and gone somewhere else to spend their money. So what I did was I geofenced buildings, I put iBeacons in the doorway, I trained staff, people walk through the door, and now we have the first, because nobody had ever done it before, we have the first proximity-aware staff training system, which is now installed with, as of November 2017 when I launched it, Royal Bank of Scotland, Edinburgh Airport, Scottish Government, Scottish Parliament, Stirling Council, Dundee Council, NatWest, Atos, House of Fraser, Doubletree Hilton, Pennies and Poppy Seeds Shortbread Shop, Forth Valley Sensory Centre, Guide Dogs to the Blind, RNIB, Deafblind UK, Headway Ireland, with interest from all around the world. So we're heading in the right direction with something that does something very unique.
I was in Levels Cafe the other day there, and there was a disabled person. And
yeah,
so
Levels
I was
Cafe.
thinking of you, and
So we met there one time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that's what's that called? You haven't told us.
Oh, that's called Welcome. Buttons. The button one is called Button, and the one where you get better welcome is called Welcome. And believe me, the trademark guys said you can't call it Welcome. You can't trademark it. And ever since then, people have gone, oh, I love your Welcome app. That's brilliant. So everybody's starting to call it Welcome, as if I invented the word, which is kind of stupid. But
so how did you manage to build this Welcome app? The funding, the team, the getting it out there in the real world.
Pretty much the same way. Bootstrapped it. Got a little bit more funding. Did another round of friends and family, and just recently have started the process of getting in a large funding round, which means that we go to a different level. We're 2 people in our team just now, bearing in mind all those people we're working with. But by the end of this year, we should have 10 people in our team and grow quite quickly, we hope. But it's still a massive gamble. And the downside of friends and family, my mum's put in 20 grand. If this goes pear-shaped, she's going to lose 20 grand, and I can't have that. That would be a bad plan.
Wow, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, couldn't be good.
But you have a responsibility to the world, don't you?
Don't say that. No pressure. I guess somebody else will do this as well. That's great, because it's too big a world.
Yeah,
we're across every sector. It's impossible for one company to do this kind of stuff. But hopefully other people will step into that breach.
So you've already touched on what you might do differently, again with our, playbook of how to build a startup. Is there anything else that you do differently when it comes to, raising money or commissioning an app or getting people in your team?
Wow, I don't think I would do anything differently. That seems like a crazy thing to say, because I've learned a lot in that, and I'm still alive and still doing it now. So I don't know if I would do anything differently, but I might react differently to things that happen to me. So at the very start, I didn't get happy when things went right, but I got really unhappy when things didn't go right. So when I found out that Microsoft were doing something with beacons to help people get around cities, I just went, oh, well, that's me wasted all my money and all the rest of it. But because I maintained my work and just kept head down and kept going, it meant that Microsoft fell by the wayside eventually, which was kind of, it just showed you that they didn't have the stability and the experience.
Or the commitment.
Yeah. So reacting differently to things going wrong and indeed when things go right. If something goes brilliantly, don't necessarily go out there and go, yeah, wow, look at this, because everybody then starts looking at you, and then you put yourself into a position where you have to maintain that style over substance. And I think there is something to be said in this day and age to have substance over style. In a world where we're doing crowdfunding, in a world where we all tell everybody what we're doing before we actually do it, work away in the background. And I know that one of your points was don't keep quiet. I think that's specific to a certain area. I think the substance of your product or your solution or your service has to have something about it which has already proved the point. Because if you go to an investor at that stage and all they're doing is, yeah, I've got your sketches on a piece of paper, then they'll go, yeah, I'm not really interested. But if you go up to them and say, yeah, we've installed with 5 Royal Bank of Scotland branches and we're looking at 200 more, then they start thinking, well, actually, these guys have got something. And that's the way to play the game.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely what we recommend as well. What about so it's responding? So you tell yourself this: I should have responded better in the past. Mm-hmm. How does that actually? How do you fulfill that in the future? Or
I have to do one of two things. I have to get more professional, or I have to surround myself with more people who are even more professional. And I'm going for the latter. Yeah, I'm surrounding myself with people who are really, really good. I've got a great board. I've got people who really believe in what I'm doing because of my strength of passion about it, and they believe in me. So you can surround yourself with people who believe in you as well, and they are prepared to put more in if it's obvious that you will not die for it, but if it's obvious that you will never give up, then people will follow you, and that's a really useful thing to put in there.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it sounds so simple, it makes so much sense. You mentioned earlier on about having a business or that's in a middle ground. It's it's not a charity, it's not a commercial business, it's a business for good, social business.
It is a commercial business, but in the same way that if somebody said to one of you guys, or if you came up with an idea for cleaning the ocean of plastic, and you turn around to a company, you turn around to the council or the government and said, it's going to cost you £250,000 a year to employ me, they would bite your hand off. But you, at the end of it, would have cleared the world of plastic. So that is a model where your company grows, clears the world of plastic, does an amazing job, changes the course of our planet in a very, very positive sense, but people are prepared to invest in you because you've got this amazing product. And I think that is the future of what I personally believe that's what we should be doing as a society, is finding things that aren't just making a profit, but make a profit with a purpose in mind. So if we can change the world positively, then we can make the world better, and if we can make money doing that, there's a very good chance that A, we're going to get investment, B, somebody else is going to follow that model, and C, you're actually going to have a decent lifestyle. You should not have to be a martyr. I've been a martyr for 6 years, but I'm looking forward to getting paid. I get paid now, not much, but only just more than I got paid after 18 years in guide dogs, but it's a question of just like saying this is going to change the planet for better.
So why does it make you more likely to get investment?
Because you've got a model that shows you're making money.
Okay, obviously that investors want to see a return on their investment. And is that it? Is that the only thing?
That's the only thing that
appeals to investors?
No, I know you're leading me into that. There are investors out there who are more prepared to invest in good companies, tech for good or whatever it might be. There are people who are likely to invest in that. Finding them was a challenge 5 years ago, but increasingly those guys exist and girls exist, and they will put money into companies because they can see something. There would have been amazing philanthropists, and there always have been, who would put money in and go, I don't need anything back, it's okay. I just want to see you succeed. And you'll get the other people that say, yeah, I don't care if I destroy the planet, but I'm just going to want to make money. But there are investors out there who say, I want to invest my money, my hard-earned money, and make sure the planet is better. You can't go much further than Bill Gates to realise that he doesn't need all that money. He's realised that he's putting his money back into something that's incredibly positive with the computers. You could argue either way as to whether he should have been doing it earlier in his life and doing a social good company, but he's doing it now, and I guess he would be an investor in something that was social good.
And have you asked him for investment?
No, but if you go on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see there's a picture of me and Richard Branson from about 6 years ago where I cut half of his head off. So you got me and Richard Branson's head here. So You could ask these guys, but I think that you can do it. You should be able to do it on your own. I think as soon as you get somebody else like that involved at an early start, then you're beholden to them and you don't feel that it's yours in some way. Find a mentor, find somebody that can mentor you and help you, but don't necessarily get beholden unless your business model is build a company, sell a company, make loads of money, get the next company, build a company, sell a company. In which case, yeah, get the money in quick, sell the company quick. If it's social good, brilliant, because you'll have loads of companies, but I don't know if that's the model I've got.
So, what does the future look like for you and your Neatebox? Are you going to be building more apps? Are you going to be scaling out the apps that you have?
The apps that I have. So the app Welcome has the ability to inform somebody that you're walking through a door and that they need to interact with you in a specific way. But we are now testing it with trains, with LNER at Waverley Station, and also with First Bus in Glasgow. So a bus driver is driving along and knows that the person who's waiting at the next bus stop has a wheelchair and can turn round to the person with a pram and say you need to fold the pram up before they get to the junction or the stop where there's somebody in a wheelchair. Currently, the driver would pull up at the stop, turn round to the person with the pushchair and say you need to put that away. And then there's friction and a fight and a wheelchair user who gets on with at least one person in the bus hating them because they've had to push up their buggy. Whereas if they know that in advance, then you can do that. We're also adding in an emergency button. We're also adding in two-way communication to Welcome so that you can contact somebody and actually communicate before you get to your destination. And airports, ferries, buses, trains, hotels, banks. I mean, it's freaking big enough as it is, but there are plenty of other ways to use technology to help the world, and Tech for Good is a way of doing that.
So this is an exciting journey that you're on, and but you've not got many people helping you at the moment, have you? You're very busy. Do you need more people? Do you want more people to help you join your team and get on Gavin's bus?
Hopefully 10 by the end of the year, but
okay.
There's 2 of us just now, 3 by the middle of this month, 4 next month, and then 6 more, and looking for people who are crazy passionate. If you see any of our job adverts, it is obvious we want passion. We don't just want somebody who's seeing how they can rise. We've got it's flexi working times, and it's also share options within the company and all these things, but it's hard work and every hour.
And what kind of people are you looking for?
Brilliant people. Cheers.
What kind of brilliant people?
Oh, okay, right, sorry. So currently we're advertising for marketing. We want in-house developers. We're going to need HR admin type people. We're going to need more customer excellence representatives, people who can talk to our customers, people who can talk to our user base. I have a hashtag called employee. It's hashtag employ20 because I want 20% of all of my workforce from now through my entire company for them to be made up of disabled people or people who are directly connected to disability. So if you are a parent with a disabled child and you want a flexi job, I will welcome you in with open arms if you've got the skills to build my company. Wow. Or if you are a disabled person, then I want you to come and work in my company because there's a massive talent out there that's just not recognised at this time.
And you earlier on you were telling me about how the massive difference it makes when the people are solving their own problem rather than designers or town planners.
Yeah, there's a big picture here, which is the social change. In the app, you can request which venue you want to have this system in next. So you can go, I want Welcome in House of Fraser, or Doubletree Hilton, or Argos, or Sainsbury's, and that comes straight through to us. And we have a map of requests for the entire country of people who are saying, I want this here. Now, IKEA is a good example of somebody that turned us down when we had 10 people. We now have 13 people who have requested IKEA, all of them disabled, all of them wanting better service. I guarantee you when I turn up on the doorstep of IKEA and I've got 1,000 people or 10,000 people all saying you need to improve how you interact with people coming through the door, how could they say no? Well, it'll be difficult for them to say no.
Hopefully they'll say yes when you've got 100.
It's a SaaS model. It's a monthly subscription payment.
Yeah.
They're not even paying that much for the service. So it's a no-brainer. We're training staff for probably equivalent of all staff in every disability for equivalent of 150.
Wow.
It's a no-brainer.
Okay, we're going to end there. That's my question. So thank you, Gavin. Gavin Neate OBE, I see in the future.
There's no, I will say, if you want to see the website, it's neatebox.com, neatebox.com, and you can follow me on social media on Twitter, which is @neatebox. And if you want to get involved with the societal change that I'm talking about, the hashtags that we use are hashtag equality by default, and the other one is access anxiety. Or sorry, arrival anxiety. My mistake. Arrival anxiety. So if you want to use either of those hashtags, then please do, and come and join us.
Okay, we're going to open up to questions. Does anybody have a question for Gavin?
Yeah, I've got 2 questions actually.
Ah, you hog.
One, pardon my ignorance, but I didn't quite follow how the 2 boys in your video were able to use
Okay, yeah. So the mobile phone went into his lap,
Right.
and then the phone just interacts with the crossing.
The second one is, what were your thoughts for IP and stuff like that?
Is to find anybody that thinks they might want to do it to come and work for me instead. No, so IP, we have IP on the pedestrian crossing, so we patented that, but I know that anybody who's starting out will have patent drilled into them, generally speaking by people who make money from patents. I have a patent for the pedestrian crossing, but if I wanted to take it to America, I then have to patent it there, and Italy and Europe and Australia, and you end up getting into this situation where you could spend your entire life doing accountants, lawyers, patent attorneys, business development people, and you just never actually get a product. And I just went, get the product out there. And then I realised once I started asking people, they went, oh, well, you're now in a position where we wouldn't try and copy it. We would just buy it from you. But I don't know, they could. Siemens could go out and do it, but truth is they don't do it.
But your business model is slightly different as well, because you're about training company.
Yeah. Training the people and training the staff, and then training. Yeah, so
it's not just technology.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of IP in actually what we do and how we do what we do.
Yeah. Okay, that was you. Okay, another question there.
I listened to all the businesses that you had taking advantage of your product. I don't know if I misheard, but why would the hospitals and NHS will use this?
Yeah, no, that's a big one for us.
An accident that's disabled and can't.
I know.
Why would they not take?
They do like it. All the people I've spoken to in the NHS have said that's amazing.
I think it would be. Yeah.
Imagine there was a story about a guy in Newcastle who's blind, and he went into his health centre, and they've got the new iPad at the door where you then log in. And he said, "Oh, I can't." He said, "How do I?" He went to the counter, and she went, "Oh, just go and log in over there." And he went, "What?" And he said, "Oh, I'm blind. I can't do it." And she came out, made his hand into a finger, and then used her hand to press the buttons.
I just feel if someone's disabled, if they're on new medication, for example, they just log it on the system and they can scan it.
Yeah, it's so easy, and we actually have, and I can't tell you who it is right now, but we have a NHS trust who are going to be installing it in a couple of venues. But yes, it could be across all of those. Yeah, it's massive. It's absolutely ginormous. If you're deaf and you go into a doctor's appointment, and you go up to the counter or the reception desk and you hand over your card, and the receptionist goes, right, okay, if you'd like to take a seat. The deaf person goes, okay, she must have been saying take a seat. They take a seat, they're doing that. Doctor comes out, Mr. Smith. No, Mr. Smith. Goes back into his surgery. Mr. Smith goes up 5 minutes later. What's happening?
I agree, I just think it's
I know, you're totally right.
biggest markets for your product.
You're totally, every market, every sector where there is customer service is a market for proximity-aware training.
Cool. Any other questions? Just keep them coming.
Gavin, is your offerings on wearables, watches?
Yeah, so the pedestrian crossing is on here, and also Welcome can be on here. It's not on here yet, but
Just Apple Watch, is it?
it's just Apple Watch at this time. Well, that's one of the things that you have to sort of get your head around at the very start, is that if you do iOS, you're on all iOS devices as much as you can be, but if you do Android, then you have to be on so many different types of devices, and it costs a lot of money to do it. All of my users were visually impaired people at the start, and they were using iOS because it was so accessible, so it made sense to do it on this and that. But ultimately, if the phone is in your pocket, because the watch I've got is connected to the phone, and if the phone's in your pocket, your watch doesn't need to do it because the phone's doing it for you. But with the latest Apple Watch, where your phone doesn't even need to be there, yeah, for sure, you could do so many things with that, and it is just walking towards it. Yeah, so yeah, wearables, clothes, smart clothes, you name it. It's all there.
Great question, thanks. Anybody else? This end of the room?
Cool.
Obviously, you'll have a chance to ask Gavin your questions yourself, but there might be a bit of a scrum around him. Trying to... Igor.
Yeah. What were the biggest obstacles you faced on the way just to actually make it happen? Was like people doubt about your product?
Yeah, it's a really good question. What's the biggest obstacle?
What was the question?
Sorry, go on.
What was the biggest obstacle?
Oh God, what is the biggest obstacle? For me, it was fear that somebody else would do it first in the early days, and I kept it all really closed and I didn't tell anybody. But then ultimately the biggest fear was when everybody knew about it, that nobody was going to see what I was doing. And right now, it's hard work to explain to people how the system's not working. And the best way to describe that is Henry Ford, the guy who did Ford Motor Company, allegedly said, I don't think he actually said it, was if I'd asked them what they'd have wanted, they would have said faster horses. And everybody right now is making better horseshoes and better saddles and putting a horse in every town so that they can get from A to B much quicker without realizing that there's something else that they could use. And if they're transfixed on horses, they're not going to think about cars. And if they're transfixed on staff training and they don't think about why staff training doesn't work, then it's very hard to actually explain that. And in the traffic industry, it was getting certification. The certification physically was a real hard issue. We don't have certification, but we've got councils coming to us and saying, we'll self-certify. We don't care. We know there's nothing that this can do wrong, so we'll self-certify. So it wasn't money. It wasn't me knowing that I was going to do it because I was just like dedicated to it. It was sometimes getting knockbacks a little bit or thinking that people who should know better than me actually did know better than me. I think that was something that was a hard thing for me to take.
So were you putting people on a pedestal, or were you just thinking, what was that thought process? You thought people were better than you?
Everybody who works as a practitioner, doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen, road sweepers, they think the business world is made up of people who are somehow born business people. They don't get outside of that system because they think everybody is more intelligent than them, when actually the fact is that their user experience and their knowledge of the subject matter makes them at least one of the most valuable people in that room. But they aren't being involved in that, and I think that's one of the biggest things, is you get those people involved, get the practitioners involved, because they've seen what the problems are.
And they're, and they're your customers in a sense.
Yeah, well, everybody's our customer.
Yeah.
The business is the customer service team member is a customer, the disabled person is a customer, the rest of the public who are walking by are the customer. Everybody's a customer, society's a customer.
I think it's really inspiring the way you've managed to finance the enterprise. You've managed to get finance. You're doing good, but like usually, as businesses grow and progress, then eventually there comes to be a conflict between people who've invested in you and the return they want, and doing the right thing. It's obviously what really inspires you. I wonder if you can foresee that happening, and you have an idea about how you're going to get around that.
So businesses right now, 4 or 5 years ago, businesses didn't have accessibility champions within them. If you go to RBS, they are all about customer care. And within that, they know 20% of their population are disabled, and there's a larger population that are elderly. And they know that they need to find solutions for these areas. If those solutions make them more money, then they're more inclined to look for those solutions, whether they're good or bad or indifferent. The first 4 people that went through the door using our system at Royal Bank of Scotland all changed their bank accounts from bank accounts they'd had their entire lives. So when the business sees that there is financial reward, you could have something that, well, if it's the best thing in the world and it helps everybody and everybody makes money out of it and people get a better life out of it, then you've got a model that is sustainable and growing and high growth. So I'm not scared, to tell you the truth, about people not getting it, but I've never been scared of failure either. So I'm not worried about failing. I'm worried about not succeeding, if that makes any sense at all.
Were you talking about preferential rights?
You mentioned a B Corps.
Uh-huh.
Made me think about a different kind of. Made me think about the possibility that a differently structured company. I mean, in the end, a company has as its primary responsibility under commercial law is to return the maximum possible. To make maximum possible return to its investors.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Now, if you can manage to make that coincide with doing the right thing, which obviously you are doing, then that's great. But in the end, if there's a conflict between those two things,
Oh, I don't think there's a conflict. I think you can.
I think it'll never be a conflict.
Oh, no, hey, listen, I'm Buzz Lightyear. I'll just run through the door and worry about it later. But I think that I've got a model that is making money, and people see that making money is doing something good. So I'd be interested to go into that in more detail with you to find out, because, as I say, I don't know all the answers. Luckily, I've got people around me who have got a lot more of the answers. But there doesn't seem to be a conflict. I think historically I've got this amazing thing that's going to change the world, but every year I'm going to run out of money. And I'll get grant funding and the government will fund it. And we'll call it a charity or a social enterprise. And it's not sustainable, but because it's such a good idea, you'll keep pumping money into it, and eventually the money dries up and it doesn't get money pumped into it. And you get the other end of the scale where it's we're making lots of money, but do you know what? For every diamond I pull out of the ground, 5 children die. Well, it's okay because nobody really cares about that. They do now. I'm putting pollution into the planet. Well, actually, people do care about that now, and your shares will go down because people will not be happy about having shares in your company. This is very simplistic. And in that middle ground, there is the ability to make money and do something really good. And we're doing it. So all I can say is that the proof will be in the pudding in the next few years. I don't know if it will be successful, but we'll probably find out.
The key is being upfront with your investors, though, right? So
Yeah,
your investors buy into that
Mhm.
purpose, and they would expect you to maintain that level.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, maximum value is an interesting topic, but if the investors are expecting you to perform up here,
Mhm.
and that level, that delivers this level of profit, then
Mhm. Well, our graphs are fairly insane. We've got 80% or 90% return, which is, and don't ask me to go into too much detail about that, but because I wouldn't be able to, not because I'm shy. But there's now that the hard work's been done, it's about selling a product and maintaining a product and making sure people are happy with the product and developing the product.
Okay, we're going to have one more question in from Ryan, and then we're going to move on to pitching.
Hi, so my background's in patents, and I work in private equity now, so I'm just constantly thinking during your talk about how we would get investors to fund you. Now, I was just kind of thinking, do you have any overlap with the aging population, like the market for the aging population? Because that is a massive diet.
Trillions.
Exactly.
Trillions.
Especially in Asia and Japan, and I'm just thinking, I've always been thinking accessibility and awareness are just two things that you can never have enough of.
Yeah.
And everybody's getting older, so I'm just thinking you are entering a massive market.
It's ginormous. It's too big.
Yeah.
It's the biggest market possible.
Yeah.
It's the largest minority in the world because every single person in this room is going to be one of two things as they get older: dead or disabled. That's fact. You're going to die under a bus very quickly, or you're going to have a 10-year period of being not as able-bodied as you were before. That's just fact, guys. It's everybody. So we're all part of that minority, which is the majority. It's everybody. In 2014, there were 11 million people over 65 in the UK. By 2050, there's going to be 19 million people over 65. What? Oh my God! I thought I'm going to turn around and you'll be lying on the ground, going or die. So it's as you say, and in Japan and a lot of these, the Western world, people are getting older. I think if you go online and you have a look at how many people are over 100 now compared to how many people were over 100 in 2011, it's gone up by 140% or something. It's insane, and that's the future. So this is anybody who's working in the health sector right now is looking at how they're going to prepare people to provide services for less money. So tech is the way to do that.
For example, Starbucks, all their staff are trained in sign language, I believe.
Oh no, not all of them.
No, not all of them.
In fact, that didn't work because it's hard to maintain it. Because you can do that. You can train all of your staff. I could train you all here to say, hello, my name is.
For maintenance.
And 2 months from now, you meet somebody who's deaf who uses sign language and you've forgotten how to do it, or you're unsure as how to do it and you don't do it. Whereas if 10 minutes before you meet them, or 2 days before you meet them, you use this system, it could teach you how to say it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a maintenance of that interaction that is the most important thing.
So really final quick thing. I just thought it'd be absolutely wonderful for viral marketing for companies if at that moment that they implemented your system that they're training, and just said, look at the social benefit. We just literally changed one disabled person's world right here and now. I think it would be excellent marketing just to get some of those viral, what you call it, stackable content videos of all the business you've helped and people.
So the guy who walked into House of Fraser, and as he said in our video, he said, I had a whole pile of tenors in my pocket. And he said, I'm just looking to spend them. And he waited for 5 minutes and nobody came up to him. So he left the shop and he spent them somewhere else. He then went onto the app and he went to settings and he went to request new venue. He requested it. 3 months later, we were live in House of Fraser. Okay, Jenner's across the way. Before we went live in House of Fraser, they had 14 reviews on Ewan's Guide, which is a disabled review site. And every single review was 2 stars or less. This was a year and a half ago. Every single review for House of Fraser since we installed for disability services has been 5 stars.
Brilliant.
Every single review.
Wow.
That's brilliant.
We could change retail.
Wow. We're going to end there. Thanks, mate. That was so awesome.